The Canucks went from being the talk of the NHL for every wrong reason possible. Every
Mm-hmm.
every bad reason you could write up. All right, so I'm at the NHL. We're in the PR department now. We have our chalkboard up, and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
bad publicity for a hockey team. Okay, let's go
Mm-hmm.
with management and ownership
Right.
maybe forcing players sick with COVID to play meaningless games. Okay, that's
Well,
pretty.
like exactly. Like the bad PR precedes the COVID. It was just bad, bad, and then like the worst thing that could ever happen to this team and all the ugly speculation around it.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's like that amazing band, Bad Bad Not Good. It's just like
but now they're the feel good story of the NHL.
They spun this. I mean, we were watching Hockey Night in Canada and Elliot Friedman saying like, well, they're gonna have to mend some fences. And I can only say this in so many words, but I don't think that the players are too happy with management or the ownership. And something's going to have to happen here. And now they're going, look how they banded together and defeated the evil empire that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And now Monday afternoon, feel good story of the year. They all
Yeah.
bonded together. They've overcome this. And it's
Let's face it, that was their Stanley Cup. And it was the most like everybody said, it was the most Toronto thing ever for the Leafs to lose.
Oh, those are the
in
games
that way to a team that hadn't played in a month, that was weak.
with a goalie that hadn't won a game in like 14 years. And Guillaume Brisebois,
with like two NHL caliber defensemen.
And then they play with 5 defensemen because Alex Edler, who, depending on what radio station you were listening to, is arguably the dirtiest player in NHL history. He gets suspended once every 8 years. But
I like that repeat offender there. Wonder how long his sentence will be.
Noted Swedish goon Alex Edler attempts to end yet another career. When will madness stop? Damian Cox tweets.
There's a lot to go with here, and so much has changed. This has been such a fluid situation. But Thursday, Wednesday, Bo Horvat was unable to speak to the media because of COVID protocol. If you're on the list or if you're sick, you don't have to speak. And so they tag JT Miller in, and he did something rather courageous that I don't think anybody was expecting him to do. And you could argue that if that wasn't said, what he said, they would have done everything they could to play on Friday, and they didn't. And he stuck his neck out and he stood up for his teammates, and it was he just gained a lot of clout in the city. A lot more Miller Nines are going to be sold because he did the right thing and stood up for his teammates.
Thank God that they do have someone on that team that will do that. Because I think we were also like, he was someone who was getting kind of the bad press too, right? Weren't we talking about him only a few weeks ago, kind of being pouty? Do we need a guy like that on the team? Is he good in the dressing room? Well, he just showed you what he's worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's, I do remember us talking, I like suggested about the idea of trading JT Miller. And I think it's more in the vein of, you look at like what Steve Yzerman did with Anthony Mantha at the trade deadline, where it's like, hey, he's a great player. Yeah, he's great. But looking at analytically at as a business, but I think the PR people must have known that if you put JT in front of that mic, that's probably what's going to happen. You're not going to ask JT Miller. I don't think he's the type of person that would take a, hey, can you just put a positive spin on this type thing. So when he came out and he said that, I mean, that's what everyone was thinking. And it's so odd. It's so weird that management and ownership were not the core pieces to in lieu of everyone being sick or everyone being, at a certain percentage in terms of figuring out what the hell was going on with this outbreak, that neither Jim Benning or Francesco Aquilini like came up and just said, this is we need more time. So it's that management, like, they didn't come in to be the forefront of this message towards the NHL. It had to come from the players. And if you think about that, it's, I kind of think if this were to happen to a team like an outbreak of this seriousness, if this happened to a team like the Islanders, the Red Wings, hell, even to a really harsh extent, the Canadians, like teams with very renowned and strong spoken general managers that come with a certain level of respect, like they would have just come out and said, no, like, we'll play, but we're going to play under our terms. And the NHL has to deal with it. The NHL has to figure out how to accommodate us, because we're going to go up this mountain, we're going to go up this hill. So
imagine if it was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. They would have been like, Sydney, we're going to give you robotic lungs. We're going to allow you to play 5-on-3 against the other team anytime you're on the ice. Also, let's just add 100 goals to his career goal list as a reward because you're Sydney.
Well, if Ron Hextall
but that's a management team that you would have heard from loud and clear. 100%. They would have put their foot down. That team wasn't going to play, and no one was going to dictate otherwise.
100%. And how many times in I don't want to take away from the good story that was the game against Toronto on Sunday night. But how many times has this come up now where it's lack of communication, like, this is not, I love people trying to flip this to say, oh, well, they're pro athletes. Do they really need someone to be their mommy and communicate with?
The Bo Horvat after the game, like, we saw his face.
Yeah.
And just the rings around his eyes. Like, he's been through something serious. This isn't what you look like after a game. Like, you're worn out.
Well, I mean, he looked worn out. He looked like he was crying for a week just after practice. And that's when he was like, quit writing us off. We're gonna compete. And that's funny because that's when both sides of the argument of are these games necessary, and then you hear from the players themselves that are like, yeah, we want to play and we want to win, and we're like, we're sick, but we're gonna overcome this. And as news has come out in the last couple, today and the last little bit, that like the players were left in the dark, and we've seen this, we've touched on this how many times. We see this all the time where players in this organization are just not communicated with, and
no,
and it just seems like everybody was on the same page that the Friday game wasn't going to be for sure until all the Canucks were able to pass their physicals and on the Thursday. And that seemed to not be the thing. And, come Wednesday or come Thursday, it's like, no, they'll be playing on Friday. Don't, So it's like, well, wait a minute. That is not what we agreed upon. And that's not what we've been talking, that's not been the message all week. So yeah, if you're expecting that game is not for sure, and if you just give us some more time, we're going to be able to play. And then to get that news, JT Miller did exactly what he needed to do, which was, hey, this is not right. This is not what we discussed, and we're not ready to play. And he's like, he was pretty honest. It's dangerous. You know what? It's reckless for our players, and thank God it all worked out.
Yeah.
But the fact that it took it getting to that point, like, I feel like if no player had spoken out, they would have probably forced them to play. They would have forced them to play on Friday or forced them to play on Saturday, because Sunday's game was originally scheduled for this Friday or the Saturday, right?
Yeah.
They would have just made that happen because no one said anything out loud, and little bits of information would trickle out, and you'd hear, again, it would be all that speculation going, well, they had the cases were this bad, so-and-so is not really healthy, but if they could force it, they would have made it happen. The fact that it came out in the way that it did come out, there was no hiding it because he spoke to media directly.
Yeah, the fact that it just took this long, like it got to the point where, I mean, even after the Sunday game, I had posted in a group chat. I was like, if Francesco tweets, like, just don't do it. And I'm like, don't take the bait. Just don't do the thing where after something positive happens, you tweet about knew it, fucking Francesco layup, because
Right.
you've been radio silent this entire time. The fact that JT had to come out and say that, and then
It would be
everyone all the other players reaffirmed that they were thinking exactly what he was saying.
for him to say anything would have been unbelievably condescending. Like there hasn't been leadership from the top down.
No. It's just been let's just everybody go home and get healthy, and we'll try and play on Friday.
This is the worst combination of ownership and management, and that's why they're paired together.
Yeah, I feel this is heading into, there's gonna be a book written about this after Territory.
Yeah.
Like I just feel there's so much stuff that once, we look at a decade from now, one of these Vancouver reporters is gonna find players, that are gonna be wanting to talk about it. But
we'll be able to find players wanting to talk about it.
Yeah, let's just get JT Miller on the fucking podcast right now. I'll probably be like, yo, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Good shit.
Well, that's the thing. There's so much happening, and in the undertones, like, Bo Horvat's media availability on Friday, where I believe, whereas Drance asked him about the support from ownership and management, and Horvat proceeds to say the amount of support we got from fans reaching out, our families, different people around the league, was amazing. And that was all you needed to hear. And he's listening to the question. Bo Horvat's a pretty sharp kid, and that was, and at that moment, that was a little message sender, and he did it. The fact that you have JT Miller going to bat, and you have Bo Horvat saying very specific things in the media to convey their point is a little eye-opening. Because you know what, like there's a lot of RFA contracts that need to be taken care of. There are a lot of moving parts in the off season, and if these players aren't comfortable based on what has happened or how things have been handled, you can call it fear mongering, you can call it creating your own narrative, but like it's something to think about.
It's not just the player that's affected in this scenario. It's been their families, their children, their pregnant wives.
It was awful. And
this is sorry, but this is like before even the JT Miller thing, like this was a human story. This is about human beings and their families, and I don't care about people's determination of whether COVID is really serious or if it's a seasonal I'm not going to get into this, obey your TV. I just stop. People are getting sick. Some people are getting sicker than others. A lot of people are passing away and dying, and some people are having really long-term effects. Like you read the stuff on Marco Rossi, the Minnesota Wild prospect that got COVID. It's insane, the story of how he has these lingering effects, and he went back home, and his father talked about how he would want his dad to always be beside him because he didn't want to fall asleep. Like he was trying to get his dad not to make him sleep because he thought something bad was going to happen to him. So even before the JT Miller stuff, this was a human story. The fact that they had to come back in a meaningless, like this is really, really meaningless, this entire season outside of draft position. So they decide to come back. And they play against the Maple Leafs. No one thinks they're going to win. I don't think was not thinking about a sneaky bet. It was
4.5 to 1.
Insane.
In the first period.
Absolutely insane. And I was watching the game on Sunday, and William Nylander scores the first goal, and I'm like, okay,
here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Expectations are tempered. And I'm looking at players like hunched over. I am looking at players not being able to back check and just coasting back into the defensive zone, like begging. Like what was it? Edler and Myers were on the ice for like 2.5 minutes.
Well, that's what led to the Hyman
led to
knee.
To the kneeing injury.
Yeah, like it was. You're watching players. It was the first day of training. You're watching players come back from a training. They're playing their way into shape in training camp in the 80s. Like this was.
Yeah.
This was. Go ahead.
Sorry, this was Sergei Zubov's hacking a dart in between periods, 80s type of hockey.
Yeah,
nuts.
It was like they pointed out quite early. It's like, oh, no Canuck has played an average shift of over 45 seconds. No Maple Leaf has played a shift under 45 seconds, and you saw it in the first, I'd say 3/4 of that first period. Like these are guys playing in quicksand. They were so they're just, it looked like their hockey vision was just so, it wasn't as clear as it would be on a regular night, and they just looked disheveled out there. And like even now, Braden Holtby, like he let in that goal on Nylander, which I mean a little bit of a squeaker, but we all kind of assumed that the Leafs would go up 2 or 3-0, take their foot off the gas out of respect for the Canucks because of what they've gone through, and you would have seen this dull, unremarkable game, and that would have been that. And then they're very different, but what we saw was the Maple Leafs, I can't even say they took their foot off the gas like the David Ayres game, but you just had the Leafs in a, there's no way we can lose this game, and abruptly lose the game.
Yeah, they absolutely, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Is they faced a team, they went in thinking like, okay, we're gonna win, but we don't want to. Maybe we don't want to win by that much to embarrass this other team. I don't know. This game, I feel, is such a vindication for the players. This was a players driven rally. I mean, Bo Horvat obviously with 2 goals and assist and just an insane effort. I feel like this game needs to go down in like the lexicon of like game 8 versus Boston.
It's more important.
Burrow snapping the streak against Carolina, that 10-game losing streak. Like the fact that they came back and they did that against a team that's been playing, against a team that's the top of the North Division, against a team that has made deals in the trade deadline, and obviously like Nick Foligno and stuff aren't on the roster just yet. But in the rest of the 18 games that they have left, you hope no one gets hurt. You hope no one has any lasting side effects or injuries. I hope that they take whatever players they have on the taxi roster, or the taxi squad. I don't know. I'm completely at a loss of who they've called up and who's on the squad and whatever. I hope play Mikey DiPietro. Call up Jack Rathbone is killing it in the AHL. Give Jack Rathbone 20 minutes. Give him all of Edler's minutes. Give Olli Levy minutes. Give Cole Lind, top unit who throw and just see what sticks. Yeah. Someone there, if only one of the players earns it, amazing. And then the rest can just, you chalk it up to the draft position and being like, well, we weren't even supposed to be here in the first place. And we got, this is all experimental time. This is all just practice time.
Arash, if we're talking about this as being a team effort and this team is working together to win as many games as possible, and then a pride is such a factor, is that coaching staff or is that leadership core going to want to be like, hey, we want to win every game. We want to be competitive every game. And there are going to be opportunities to put in Mikey DiPietro because there's about 45 back-to-backs, and Alex Edler is suspended for the next 2 games, which it's tough but fair. But there are some opportunities, but I don't think that you're going to be able to get this team be like, all right, let's go full Sergei Shirokov with the Sedin. Let's just
no, because I'm not talking about, let's scratch Bo Horvat. Let's go scratch Quinn Hughes. And Thatcher, just go down to San Diego, start your summer early. Like that. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm saying listen, in the next 18 games, there are going to be holes in this roster.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be spots available. Like I would love the next man up, but if your next man up is Antoine Roussel, you already know what you have in Antoine Roussel. You're not going to be like, "Why? Hey, Frenchman, go up and score some goals. Do the arrow again. Come on, everybody love Burrow."
I agree with you. There's like this opportunity to like give some of these guys a real tryout that they wouldn't otherwise have because you're not really fighting for anything.
Yeah, and there's guys like Zach McEwen who every time he plays, he slots in on the fourth line. He he looks impactful and he's noticeable out there and he plays great, but he always seems to lose a roster spot to a Beagle or Roussel or whomever. So I'm like, give
him more minutes and then take away minutes from guys who need to rest. Like Bo Horvat doesn't need to play 23 minutes a game. He can play 13.
You don't need to make David Draisaitl your best players at this point. You don't have to be like 30 minutes. Go, kids. They're just like people. Yeah, players are going to get injured. Players are going to have reduced minutes. This stuff is obviously going to have an effect on them and their cardiovascular. There's going to become opportunities to just kind of literally. It's so rare unless you're like a team like Buffalo or Detroit where you're just literally able to just throw whatever you want at the wall and you can experiment and like no one will have any other expectation. But if this is just a small window, like you look at Utica, like Jonah Gadjevich, he's like almost a goal per game.
Yeah,
I know Utica's been injured and everything in the AHL schedule is weird, but
the AHL is full of they're all any reputable players on the taxi squad. But the point is he's scoring goals at that pace.
Yeah, he's scoring goals at that pace. So, also, I don't know what the hell Braden Holtby did during this COVID protocol break.